Snark Squad, it is Friday evening, and babes, we are back on our spiral shit. Cheers to us and cheers to you.
Cheers. And honestly, a preemptive cheers to our collective nervous systems, because the level of corporate and emotional wreckage we are about to unpack tonight, it requires fortitude.
It really, really does. I just want to take a second and, let that clink breathe. We made it to the end of the week.
Barely.
Barely, but we are here. And before we get into the absolute masterclass of toxicity that is this television show, we have to give a massive personal shout out to our listeners, Jessica and Elizabeth.
Oh, yeah. Thank you both.
Yes, you two slid into the DMs, you made your demands very known, and you specifically requested that we cover Season 5 of Hacks. And babes, you already know the drill. You ask and you shall receive. So babes, we are here.
We are heavily armed with opinions. And I am looking at whatever it is you just handed me in this glass, and I'm genuinely concerned for my structural integrity.
Stop it. It is a culinary triumph.
Is it, though?
Yes. I got a little experimental tonight. I wanted something that felt like a beautiful disaster, which perfectly mirrors the characters we're talking about. So I took this overripe watermelon that was definitely on its last legs, like it was looking at me pleadingly from the crisper drawer.
Begging for the compost bin.
Begging for a purpose. And I blended it with this incredibly soft, practically bruised mango, and then obviously a very generous, heavy-handed pour of dark rum. And babes, it is divine. It has this velvety, scandalous texture. It's sweet, it's tropical, and I am boldly claiming that this is a health choice. We are drinking our vitamins tonight.
Let's unpack this nutritional delusion for a second.
Yeah.
You are legally trying to claim that blending decomposing fruit with hard liquor counts as a health choice.
It's fruit.
Because I'm pretty sure the FDA would issue an ED recall on this. I mean, it tastes like a luxury vacation that went horribly wrong on day 3. But you decided to just lean into the chaos and stay at the swim-up bar while the hurricane makes landfall.
Exactly. That is the exact vibe.
I'm not saying I hate it. I am actually going to finish it. But calling it healthy is, well, it's the kind of aggressive reality distortion we usually reserve for Hollywood publicists.
Look, delusion is just confidence without evidence. And honestly, the health aspect is totally irrelevant anyway, because we obviously had to pair this bespoke, violently tropical beverage with Taco Bell.
The ultimate Friday night equalizer. Nothing grounds a pretentious mango cocktail quite like a paper bag full of processed cheese.
Excuse, we are indulging in the absolute peak of fast food architecture tonight. I got us the cheesy gordita crunches, and I will violently defend this take, babes. This might be the best taco ever invented in human history.
Oh, wow. The best ever.
Yes. Think about the engineering. You have the soft, pillowy flight bread on the outside acting as a warm protective barrier, then the melted cheese layer, which serves as the essential mortar.
Load-bearing cheese.
Exactly. It holds the entire fragile infrastructure together, and then the hard shell inside preserves the crunch. It is a structural marvel. It never falls apart when you bite into it.
I will concede the architectural brilliance of the melted cheese mortar. It prevents the hard shell from shattering into a million devastating pieces down your shirt, which is, a major flaw in traditional taco design. But speaking of choices that affect our physical well-being, I actually skipped my usual Pilates class this morning.
Wait, what? Plot twist. Who are you and what have you done with my fiercely regimented co-host?
I know, I broke the routine. I decided to mix it up and I went swimming instead. I hit the local indoor pool, just did laps for an hour. It was incredibly meditative. The rhythm, the silence underwater, highly recommend.
Oh my God, no, absolutely not. I am spiraling immediately. I am having a visceral, full-body reaction right now. Pools are gross. Pools are deeply, fundamentally, unforgivably gross.
It is highly chlorinated water. It is a mathematically balanced chemical environment designed specifically for sanitation.
It is a human soup. Think about the chlorine. Do you know why pools smell so strongly of chlorine? It's not just the chemical itself. The pool smell happens when the chlorine reacts with human bodily fluids.
Okay, we don't need to...
Sweat, oils, other unmentionable liquids. You are basically swimming in a giant communal bathtub that hundreds of strangers have marinated in. The Band-Aids floating at the bottom, the horrifying concept of public water. You just submerged your entire respiratory system in a concrete bowl of community residue.
How can you sit there, clutching a fast food taco, assembled at rapid speed by a teenager, and judge me for swimming in a sanitized pool? And more importantly, how can you think pools are gross but be totally fine swimming in lakes and oceans? You love the beach. You are always trying to plan a lake house trip.
That is completely different. That is nature. A lake has an ecosystem.
Nature is an unsupervised, chaotic abyss. A lake is filled with fish excrement, bacteria, and literal decomposing marine life. An ocean is where every single aquatic creature goes to the bathroom everywhere all the time. A pool is a controlled environment designed to kill pathogens. The ocean is lawless.
The ocean has currents, it cleanses itself, the tides bring in fresh water. A pool is just stagnant. It is trapped water and has nowhere to go. I cannot even look at you right now. You are practically glowing with municipal water residue.
I took a very thorough, scalding hot shower afterward. My conscience and my pores are clear. But fine, let's pivot from my aquatic adventures because I know you have a completely different kind of existential spiral queued up for us. You were frantically texting me about some corporate rumor earlier today.
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So I was listening to a podcast earlier and they dropped this rumor that TikTok reportedly only has one lawyer in the entire United States. One. Singular.
Wait, what? That defies every metric of corporate logic.
Right.
That is a multi-billion-dollar international tech conglomerate facing unprecedented levels of government scrutiny, congressional hearings, state-level bans. How could they possibly operate an empire of that magnitude with a single attorney?
That is exactly what I was screaming at my windshield. How is a company that is quite literally locked in a death match with the U.S. government operating like a 3-person startup working out of a garage? Can you imagine being that one lawyer?
The cortisol levels.
You log on in the morning on a Tuesday, and there are 4,000 unread urgent messages from the Department of Justice. I would simply fake my own death and move to a cabin off the grid.
Honestly, if that is true, if a tech giant is navigating the American legal system with one exhausted attorney clutching a lukewarm coffee, then we are officially ahead of the curve as 100 heirs with 0 lawyers.
Literally.
We are basically operating at the exact same legal-to-revenue ratio as one of the most powerful companies on Earth.
It is giving strategically disruptive confidence, which honestly is the perfect seamless transition for tonight. Because if we are talking about unhinged confidence, chaotic business decisions, and manufacturing a facade in the face of intense public scrutiny, let's get into this recap.
Let's do it.
We are diving headfirst into the Season 5 premiere of our absolute favorite dark comedy about the brutal, toxic world of entertainment.
We're analyzing the first act of this final season, specifically episodes 1, 4, and 5. We're getting into the EGOT illusion, the Paley Center meltdown, and the mother-daughter reality TV mayhem.
Yes, and we start with a literal manufactured death, because if we are talking about controlling a narrative, Deborah Vance takes it to the absolute extreme. We open episode 1 with a full-blown death hoax.
Which is just iconic behavior.
So iconic. Deborah is on a boat in Singapore, right? She faints, it's dramatic, it's scary, but she wakes up and refuses to go to the hospital because she feels fine. She goes back to her luxury hotel and then intentionally gives a bad, exaggerated tip to TMZ. And the next thing we know, the internet has decided she is dead, and fans are building literal shrines of Diet Coke and feather boas outside her Las Vegas mansion.
Which is such a brilliant, biting commentary on modern celebrity culture. The speed at which society pivots from tearing a woman down to canonizing her. Because before the fainting spell, Deborah's reputation was actively being destroyed.
Oh, entirely. Bob Lipka, the billionaire media mogul whose network she burned to the ground last season, has been waging an absolute masterclass of a smear campaign against her.
Bob is out for blood. And he isn't just sending angry tweets. He is doing these faux concerned interviews on major networks, calling her bizarre, hinting at a total mental breakdown. He's painting the narrative that she didn't just breach her contract over creative differences, but that she literally lost her mind.
And this is where we have to look at the chilling reality of modern media monopolies. If a billionaire decides he wants to erase you from the cultural zeitgeist, he actually possesses the infrastructure to do it. He literally scrubs her entire late-night catalog from his streaming service.
5 years of work.
5 years of her late-night show, interviews, monologues, just poof, deleted. And this is not science fiction, you guys. We see this happening in the real entertainment industry right now, where massive conglomerates vault completed movies or delete entire television series just for a tax write-off.
Think about the psychological terror of that.
Yeah.
You spend half a decade pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into a project. It is your legacy. And one man, sitting in a boardroom, presses a button and it vanishes. It proves that in the digital age, you don't actually own your history unless you own the servers it lives on.
It is terrifying. And Ava, Deborah's writer, she wants to sue immediately. which is the logical response. You file an injunction, you fight it out in court for 3 years. But Deborah understands PR warfare. Lawsuits are slow and boring. She tells Ava she needs a legacy-defining win that cannot be spun. And what does she decide on? An EGOT.
Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. The most statistically rare peak of Hollywood achievement.
But I have to push back here. Isn't EGOT actually unassailable anymore? Or is it just a trivia fact for Wikipedia? Because to me, Deborah deciding to get an ego isn't a brilliant PR move. It is the purest distillation of delusion. She isn't trying to create groundbreaking art. She is treating prestigious awards like a grocery list.
But that is the satirical genius of the plot. The show is breaking down the mechanics of the Hollywood Awards industrial complex. Deborah already has a Daytime Emmy for hosting that bizarre game show Bogongle and a Tony for just throwing money at Spamalot as a producer.
Right, she just wrote a check.
Exactly. So she just needs the Grammy and the Oscar. And instead of trying to earn them through artistic merit, she asks, how can she exploit the loopholes?
The Grammy strategy is what sent me into orbit. It perfectly captures how deeply uncreative the corporate side of Hollywood is. They hire McKinsey, the massive global consulting firm, to run data on the weakest Grammy categories. They are asking data analysts which category has the fewest voting members so they can rig the odds.
And the algorithm tells them that the statistically easiest path is regional Mexican album, including Tejano.
I was physically screaming at my TV. The visual of Deborah Vance, a wealthy white woman, standing in a recording studio, aggressively shaking maracas and singing in Spanish about porcelain salt shakers.
It is phenomenal satire. Deeply offensive, absurd, but entirely believable that a desperate celebrity with unlimited funds would try exactly this to game an awards show.
But the Tejano album isn't even the most calculatedly erratic part. When they realize the optics of that might cause a global scandal, she pivots to the audiobook category. She decides to record the Grammy-nominated audiobook for her memoir. The only problem is, the memoir does not exist.
Minor detail.
Right. So she brings in Tony Kushner, actual Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Tony Kushner, to ghostwrite her entire life story in 2 weeks.
The dynamic between Deborah and Tony Kushner is a fascinating exploration of rewriting history versus actual introspection. Tony wants to do this immersive generational exploration of her psyche. He wants to start in Scotland, unpack generational trauma, listen to Peggy Lee to set the mood. He wants the core of her pain.
And Deborah absolutely refuses to look inward.
Yeah.
She wants to skip directly to high school, where she explicitly dictates that the text should just read that she was gorgeous, smart, and popular. College, same.
It perfectly highlights her terror of vulnerability. She doesn't want a memoir. She wants an extended press release.
Yes, she wants a bulletproof version of her past because her present is falling apart. And while she's spiraling in this ego delusion in Vegas, we have to talk about the absolute carnage happening in LA with her agents, Jimmy and Kayla.
Jimmy and Kayla's agency is essentially a sinking ship. They are hemorrhaging clients because nobody in Hollywood wants to be represented by a firm that is blacklisted by Bob Lipka's entire media empire.
And their overhead is astronomical. That sleek office costs $30,000 a month. Jimmy is desperate. He needs an Oscar for Deborah to complete her ego, so he looks at the only solid project they have, a prestige Fatty Arbuckle biopic. And Jimmy actively conspires to fire his own client, the current lead actress, just so he can slide Deborah into the role.
A profound ethical breach. An agent's fiduciary duty is to protect their client, and Jimmy is actively sabotaging one client to save another. But the irony is, Deborah ultimately bails on the movie anyway.
Of course she does.
Which forces Jimmy into an even more chaotic corner. He has to call his real-life mother, soap opera legend Deidre Hall, to step in and save the production at the 11th hour.
And the only reason Deborah bails on their Oscar bait movie is because Ava finally steps up and does her job. Deborah is testing everyone around her. She tests Ava by casually mentioning that she wants to fund a primary campaign against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I want to pause here for a second. For the Snark squad listening, whether you lean left, right, or center, we are staying totally out of the political ring here.
Absolutely.
We aren't endorsing or bashing anyone's politics. We're just reporting on the absolute unhinged lengths Deborah will go to test her assistant's loyalty. She is using a highly polarized political move purely as a stress test.
Precisely. She explicitly tells Ava, I don't need a yes man, I need a no woman to ignore. She wants the pushback. She craves the friction because that's how she knows the relationship is authentic, and Ava finally breaks. She tells Deborah the EGOT is a desperate joke and that her true legacy is selling out Madison Square Garden.
But there is a massive legal roadblock. Deborah physically cannot perform. She signed a non-compete clause with Bob Lipka, so she goes underground. She sets up a secret word-of-mouth stand-up show hosted by Marcus at a QVC storage warehouse in the middle of the night.
And the password to get in, Hermes Kelly 28, Croc, Gold Hardware.
It is the most specific, elitist, perfectly obnoxious password for a Deborah Vance underground comedy ring.
And here is where we see Ava's strategic brilliance. Ava secretly records a short clip of this underground show on a burner phone and anonymously leaks it to the internet. She knows that leaking the tape will force Bob Lipka's corporate lawyers to serve Deborah with a subpoena, dragging her into court for violating the non-compete.
Wait, so Ava intentionally gets her own boss sued? That is a massive gamble. What if the judge had completely bankrupted Deborah?
It is a gamble, but Ava understands that the courtroom isn't a place of legal judgment for Deborah. It is a global stage. And Deborah catches on immediately. She intentionally loses the court case. The moment the judge slaps her with a temporary restraining order forbidding her from performing, Deborah walks out of the courthouse straight into a sea of waiting paparazzi.
Dressed head to toe in soft, muted beige, the universal color of celebrity victimhood.
Exactly. And she looks into the cameras and screams, "Free speech is under attack in this country."
It is the ultimate jujitsu move. She weaponizes Bob Lipka's own legal retaliation against him. By suing her, Bob accidentally created a national news cycle where Deborah is no longer the crazy, washed-up diva. She is the martyred free speech warrior. She flips the narrative and uses that exact moment to announce her massive comeback show at Madison Square Garden.
It is PR warfare at its absolute finest. But that manufactured martyrdom is exactly what triggers her massive identity crisis in the next episode. Because once she wins the PR war, she actually has to write the damn show. Which brings us to the Paley Center flop and the psychological burden of finding the funny.
This is where the emotional core of the season really anchors itself. Deborah is facing a terrifying blank page. She attends an exclusive exhibit at the Paley Center honoring her old CBS sitcom Who's Making Dinner. This is the show she co-created with her ex-husband, Frank, before he stole all the credit and cheated on her with her sister.
For 50 years, Deborah's entire comedic drive, her ambition, her viciousness, was fueled by the radioactive rage of that betrayal.
She built a multi-million-dollar empire on spite, but at the exhibit, they play an unaired interview with Frank from decades ago, and the interviewer asks Frank how he knew the show was funny. And Frank drops a bomb. He says, because of Deborah. Deborah was the funny one.
You can physically see the oxygen leave Deborah's body. It is a devastatingly complex moment of validation. Hearing him admit it from beyond the grave completely deflates her. It forces a terrifying question. Who is Deborah Vance without her rage?
It's exactly like finally getting that long apology text from a toxic ex 3 years after a brutal breakup. You spend years thinking that text is going to give you this amazing closure, but actually it just ruins your gym motivation.
That is,
You have no one to mentally argue with on the treadmill anymore. You were running on pure spite, and now you just have to do cardio for cardiovascular health. It's devastating. You lose your momentum.
That is an incredibly specific and entirely accurate analogy. Without her persecution complex, Deborah completely loses her comedic edge, and she bombs spectacularly at the Paley Center panel event. She gets up on stage, and instead of being sharp and witty, she is overly earnest. She calls Joan of Arc her sister in the struggle.
I was cringing so hard.
She randomly announces to the wealthy crowd that Frank's family owned slaves in the 1800s. It is pure flop sweat.
And she starts punctuating her sentences with y'all, which should be a federal crime for a woman who lives in a French chateau-style Vegas mansion. But the bombing actually leads to a breakthrough, because she still has that active restraining order from Bob Lipka, and her unhinged speech violated the public gag order. She gets arrested right outside the Paley Center.
And she ends up in a holding cell in L.A. At first, she is wallowing in existential dread. But slowly, she stops trying to be important and she just starts riffing with her cellmates. They start making jokes about the terrible lighting, the bizarre bureaucracy of the justice system. She finds the rhythm again through simple human connection.
Yes. And when Ava bails her out, Deborah has this massive epiphany. She realizes her Madison Square Garden show doesn't have to be this grand sociopolitical statement. It doesn't have to carry the heavy weight of her trauma. It just has to be funny.
Which beautifully mirrors the trajectory of Hacks itself in its final season. The creators are dropping the heavy trauma plot requirement for pure, unadulterated comedy. Sometimes a comedian's highest calling is simply making a room full of people laugh.
Which is the perfect pivot into episode 5, The Amazing Race. We move from Deborah in a jail cell to Deborah trying to repair her relationship with her daughter, DJ, on national television.
DJ is such a brilliant character. She cashes in a promise Deborah made her years ago. If DJ stayed sober, Deborah would compete with her on a celebrity edition of The Amazing Race.
The visual comedy here is top tier. Jean Smart, an elegant comedy legend, and Caitlin Olsen, arguably the greatest uninhibited physical comedian of our generation, carting massive cheese wheels down cobblestone streets.
Milking goats. Failing a Mexican clown dancing routine.
Caitlin Olsen's delivery is flawlessly deranged. They are at the airport, frantic, and DJ aggressively complains that it's bullshit, that MMA fighting doesn't count as military service for pre-boarding.
It is a staggeringly specific brand of chaotic entitlement. But beneath the absurdity, there's a tender emotional core. As the race progresses, Deborah notices that DJ doesn't care that they are failing. She doesn't care that she looks ridiculous. She throws herself into the humiliation with total abandon.
And Deborah realizes that DJ is actually tougher than she is. Deborah's entire persona is built on avoiding being laughed at. Her greatest fear is humiliation. But DJ has lived her whole life being mocked, being a punchline, and she survives. It rolls right off her back.
It's a profound moment of maternal validation. But we cannot talk about this reality show sequence without addressing the controversial cameo. Trisha Paytas makes an appearance as a fellow competitor, calling herself a fellow online comedian.
And we have to mention the chatter here. The sources highlight a lot of fan pushback regarding Trisha's real-world political and social controversies. As always, we are completely impartial here. We are not taking sides or endorsing any political viewpoints regarding the Middle East or otherwise. We are simply acknowledging that the fandom was highly polarized by this casting choice and moving right along.
Acknowledged. Because while Deborah is learning life lessons covered in goat milk, Ava has secured a highly coveted blind script deal with a major streaming executive. She pitches a reboot of Who's Making Dinner, focused on chosen family and downward mobility.
But the IP rights are held by Kathy Vance, Deborah's estranged sister. And Kathy will only sign the papers if Deborah gives her their late mother's porcelain salt and pepper shakers.
The pettiest ransom of all time.
And Deborah refuses out of pure spite. She would rather torpedo Ava's million-dollar career opportunity than let Kathy have the shakers. So Ava orchestrates a full-blown heist. She steals the shakers, goes to this chaotic antique dealer, TL Gurley, and trades her friend Marcus's future business for exact replicas.
Completely throwing him under the bus.
Then she drives to Kathy's house, looks this emotional woman dead in the eye, and hands over the fake shakers to get the legal rights. I physically gasped. Kathy is holding these freshly painted fakes, openly weeping, and Ava just stands there, stone-faced, committing undeniable fraud.
It demonstrates how deeply Ava has internalized Deborah's doctrine of survival at all costs. Which brings us perfectly to our first segment of the evening. Joke landed, or jail time. Which jokes hit the mark, and which ones deserve jail time?
I will kick us off with a massive hit. Kayla, Jimmy's assistant, everything she does lands, but specifically playing good cop by immediately taking the actress's side against her own boss and screaming, "Let's get the union involved."
Kayla is the beating heart of the absurdity. My favorite hit was also Kayla. Jimmy asks what she's thinking about for Halloween, and she deadpan pitches a couple's costume for them. Bart and Lisa.
The layers of wrong. They are siblings, animated children.
And then when Jimmy gets frustrated, she apologizes by saying, "Sorry, babe, I'm very bipolar." The casual weaponization of clinical mental health jargon by an HR nightmare is just too real. It landed so hard.
We also have to give a hit to the Deidre Hall cameo, casually sipping her drink and agreeing to memorize 8 pages of dialogue in 12 hours because she works in soaps. Memorization machines.
Absolutely a hit. But what earns jail time this week?
Maximum jail time to Deborah's y'all phase. When she was on stage trying to be relatable to coastal elites and kept forcing all into her sentences, it caused me actual physical pain.
It's definitely agonizing. My jail time goes to the pacing of the EGOT plotline. Not the concept, but how quickly it resolved. We had this massive buildup, and it all just evaporates the second Ava leaks the tape. Jail for rushing the narrative.
Agreed. Lock it up. Moving on to segment 2. Mentor or menace? Let's start with Ava.
Ava is oscillating wildly. She is a mentor for leaking that comedy tape. She saw the macro-level strategy, manipulated the legal system, and saved Deborah from the Tejano disaster. Visionary mentorship.
But she is a total menace for the shaker heist. She didn't just steal, she looked a grieving woman in her tear-filled eyes, handed her counterfeit shakers, and felt no guilt. She is becoming a monster.
True. Her moral compass is spinning. What about Jimmy?
Menace to himself. The man is in a Zoom couples therapy session, paying top dollar, and when Deborah calls, he slams the laptop shut on his therapist mid-sentence. Actively choosing professional abuse. Menace behavior.
He has zero boundaries. But let's look at Deborah.
This week, I'm giving Deborah a mentor badge. Yes, she was erratic, but looking her daughter in the eye and validating her resilience out loud, that is the most profound mothering she has ever done.
A rare moment of genuine growth. Which leads into segment 3, career move or career ender. Bob Lipka erasing Deborah's monologues. Smart play or disaster?
Massive career ender for Bob. He completely forgot about the Streisand effect.
Exactly. Trying to hide or censor information just drastically increases public awareness of it. He inadvertently made her underground show the most sought-after ticket in Vegas. He handed her the martyr narrative on a silver platter.
He played himself. What about Deborah's original EGOT attempt with the Tejano album?
Absolute career ender. She would have faced such intense cultural appropriation backlash that the internet would have broken. Permanent pariah. Jail.
Thank God Ava stopped it. Okay, Ava pitching a sitcom about broke millennials to a mega streamer.
Brilliant career move. Streamers love monetizing the existential dread of the working class, pitching a show about downward mobility to a billionaire tech company. Guaranteed green light. Sell the struggle back to the struggling.
Incredibly dark, but lucrative. All right, squad, our final segment. Say it louder for the men aboard. We are taking a deeply frustrating scene and rewriting it with the boundaries these characters desperately need. Who are we fixing?
We are fixing Jimmy. In therapy on Zoom, the phone rings. It's Deborah. In the show, he panics and closes the laptop.
So how should it have gone?
The phone rings. Jimmy does not panic. He makes unbroken eye contact with the therapist and says, "Hold on, watch this." He puts Deborah on speakerphone.
Yes, bring the therapist into the room.
And he says, "Deborah, I am currently paying $300 an hour to figure out why I let narcissistic women like you completely erode my self-worth. You will wait 50 minutes. And he hangs up.
Oh my God.
He doesn't wait for her to respond. He just looks at the webcam and says, "Let's continue." Power move.
I have chills. That would have been a tectonic shift. Jimmy needs to borrow some of Ava's shaker stealing energy.
He really does.
Yeah.
But he loves the chaos just as much as he hates it.
Don't we all? Well, babes, on that note, I have officially finished the very last sip of this overripe watermelon rum concoction. The chaos has settled, and I am feeling very zen.
And I'm looking at the cold, sad lettuce shreds of your cheesy gordita crunch. We have fully transitioned into weekend mode.
We really have. But before we sign off, give us one final thought to marinate on.
Okay, chew on this. We've talked about manufactured realities tonight. The EGOT delusion, the death hoax, the fake shakers. In a world where you can physically fabricate sentimental artifacts to manipulate a grieving relative, does authenticity even have a market value anymore? Or is the truth simply whatever story you have the audacity to tell? Are we watching Ava's success story or her villain origin story?
Oh my God. The death of authenticity. I'm going to be staring at the ceiling thinking about that until Monday. Babes, thank you so much for hanging out in the mess with us tonight. Thank you to Jessica and Elizabeth for the requests, and thank you to the Snark Squad for supporting the podcast.
We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, rate us, and share this with your messiest friend.
Send it to them immediately. All right, Snark Squad, stay fed, stay funny, and we'll see you on the Snark side.